Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. Right after high school graduation, 4 of my friends and I decided to go on a trip to a cabin in the woods the summer before college. Basically, it was a way we were going to get a chance to drink and smoke weed away from the family. We were going to have the entire week to party with just the 5 of us and no one else to get in the way. The cabin was really great. The only thing is, I don't think we realized just how far out into the woods this cabin actually was. The road we had to take to get there eventually stopped even being a gravel road and became just a dirt path. There were large, I guess you would call them, potholes in the ground, and it was very difficult to maneuver around them. Fortunately, we had brought enough supplies to get us through the week, so we wouldn't have to go back to town for any reason. I definitely did not want to ride on that road too often. The first and second nights at the cabin were perfectly fine. We actually had a really fun time, and there were a surprisingly large amount of things to do there. Each night, we would light up a fire in the fire pit and sit on some logs surrounding it, talking, smoking, drinking, just having a good old time long into the night. On the third night, however, we had a really strange experience. My buddy Tom kept telling me he was hearing something out in the woods. Tom is a very paranoid type, though, and no one else seemed to be hearing anything. We thought it was all in his imagination. We even began teasing him about it. Did he think Bigfoot was out there or something? We all had a good laugh together. That was until after I took a sip of my beer, I looked down and up again and saw something emerging out of the woods and coming towards us. I don't want to say I screamed, per se, more of a yelp, but it certainly got the attention of everyone as I pointed to this dark figure coming towards us. Everyone was alarmed for a moment. The figure stepped into view of the fire. It was some guy a few years older than us, out in the middle of the woods. He held his hands up and told us he didn't mean any harm. He was just out camping in the area and had a tent not far away. He smelled the fire and thought he should come check it out. My friend Joe invited the guy to sit with us. We had more than enough beer and weed to go around. The man accepted very quickly and sat down and began talking with us. The guy seemed fairly normal, just your average late college guy. He looked like he was probably a jock of some sort by the way he was built. He was very talkative and easily fit into our ranks. After some time, I began to get a strange feeling about him, though. He gave his name as Tyler, but only after we'd asked him a few times. This made me think he was trying to think of a fake name to give us. He also didn't talk about himself at all, always avoiding questions we asked about where he was from and what he did for a living. He would always bounce those questions back on us. The only thing he would tell us, actually, was that he came out to this area of the woods every summer to be on his own, but he never rented out the cabins, preferring to hide away in a tent. Some of the things he began to say were very unnerving as well. He would try to steer the talk to more morbid subjects and insanely creepy stories. That was okay because we were sitting around a campfire, but it was like it was the only thing he was able to talk about at all. Eventually, he got to telling us a really creepy story about the woods around us. It wasn't something any of us believed, really, but it was frightening nonetheless. He told us there was a family out in the woods that had been out there for decades. They hated civilization and kept as far away from it as possible to keep from inbreeding. The family members would emerge from the woods during camping season and grab a man or a woman, whatever they needed to keep the line going. He told us there were a lot of people who had gone missing in these woods, and we'd better be careful if we wanted to leave. Even though I didn't believe the story, I have to admit it did scare me. Just the idea that something like that might be able to happen was terrifying enough. We went on to talk about other things, but Tyler stopped talking altogether and kept giving me these creepy glares. It was really unnerving. Eventually, I had to get up to go to the bathroom. You think that I would have just gone out in the woods, but I hated doing that, so I walked over to the cabin to use the bathroom in there. It was a pretty modern thing with working water and a functional bathroom. I was about to go back to the fire. I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch, but when I did, I heard something behind me turning. I saw Tyler was standing right there. He was brandishing a knife and lunged at me and tried to grab me. I was fortunate to be able to avoid him. It was close, though. I turned to run, and when I took off, I felt his hand grab onto my shoulder. It wasn't enough to hold me back, though, and I ran, shouting the whole way as I made my way back to the fire. Apparently, Tyler did not even try to follow me. I told my friends what happened. They told me that after I had left to use the bathroom, Tyler had excused himself right away, telling everyone he had to go back to his tent and get some sleep. Instead, he had gone up to the cabin and tried to attack me. One of my friends joked that maybe Tyler had a sister that needed someone to breed with, but I didn't exactly find that very funny. Two of the other guys, the bigger ones, went around looking for Tyler. I'm pretty sure they planned on beating the shit out of him, but they didn't find him. The rest of the trip was not very pleasant for me. I kept thinking I'd find Tyler there any time I turned around, but I didn't run into him again. We searched during the day for any other campers, but other than coming across one other cabin, we never found his supposed tent. When we left, we found out they didn't even allow people to use tents in that area. Any customers were required to rent out one of the cabins. This just added to my fears. I never wanted to go camping in that area ever again. We did rent cabins in different areas, though, and nothing scary like that ever happened again. I had been having some strange problems. I live in a house all by myself. My parents and one of my best friends have a key to the house. Other than that, no one really comes over, and that's just the way I like it. A lot of the strange experiences began happening while I was asleep, so at first, I didn't really give them much mind. They were usually odd noises that would wake me up in the middle of the night. I would actually hear the noises as well. The first were what seemed to be voices, usually calling out my name or similar things that continued until one night, when I was woken up by someone pounding on my bedroom door. I was scared, thinking that maybe it was my parents or my friend that had a problem and came to my house to get some help. The knocking would continue until after I had woken up fully. However, once I got to the door, there was no one there. The first time it happened, I went searching the house to see if someone was inside. However, I couldn't find a sign of anyone anywhere, and all the doors were still locked up tight. Still, though, I knew I just heard someone knocking. After it happened a few times, I was told that maybe I could have been having a dream while I was awake. So if I had been hearing the knocking noises in my dream, maybe I was still hearing them when I woke up. That could explain why nobody was there. I don't know if that's actually possible, but at the time, that was enough for me to finally stop worrying about it. It did happen a few more times, but although it woke me up, I quickly stopped getting up to check the door. Maybe a month after I'd stopped checking, something else happened. I sleep on my belly all the time. I was really tired when all of a sudden I felt someone slap me on the butt. A few times, I snapped awake, looking all around me, trying to see who had done this. Like the previous times, with the knocking on the door, though, there didn't seem to be anyone there. This rattled me a whole lot more than some knocking had. It took me a long while to be able to get to sleep that night. It happened again a few more times as well. It wasn't always on my butt, mind you. I would feel someone touching my arm or my leg, but like the knocking, it stopped as soon as I searched to see if anyone was there. I thought it might still be a waking dream sort of thing. Sometime later, I was sitting in my living room chair reading a book. I actually had the TV on too, but the sound was turned down. I was engrossed in my book when suddenly there was a burst of noise, as if someone had suddenly turned up the volume all the way on the television. I looked up and dropped my book in surprise when I saw a man standing beside it. He had turned the volume up manually and was looking over at me. I only looked at the man for a few moments, but when I looked away, he wasn't there anymore. All of the past events went running through my head. The one thing I hadn't considered was there might be a ghost in my home. That was mostly because I had never believed in ghosts, but I had just seen this happen, and the volume really had turned up. I was also not asleep, as I was those previous times. To my surprise, after seeing that man, all of the strange things stopped happening altogether. I had my friend stay with me for a while to see if he would experience anything like I did, but he never did. I often wonder if those things will ever start up again. I still live in that same house, but so far, nothing else has happened. One night last autumn, I was working late at the office on a project, and I ended up staying later than I wanted to. That meant I'd missed my train home. I supposed it couldn't be helped. I would have to get a taxi home. I was really tired, and the taxi driver was this really energetic guy, incredibly talkative. I didn't really like it to begin with, but in the end, I ended up joining in with him, and we had a big chat. It was quite nice, actually. The route the driver was taking was going through a mountain pass, which was perfectly normal. I lived out in the sticks, and it was pretty dark on those mountain roads. I was starting to feel a bit sleepy again. There was a dense, full forest to the left-hand side. It was so empty out there, you know? I don't think I saw a single other car out driving that night. All of a sudden, the talkative driver went quiet, and I wondered what the problem was. He had been talking so much just moments ago. It looked like something was on his mind. I caught him quickly glimpsing at me in the rearview mirror, and I started to get a little bit nervous. It was as if a switch had suddenly flipped, and his demeanor had changed entirely. I was mentally reviewing our conversation, seeing if I had said something to upset the driver. I caught another glimpse of my driver's face when he glanced at me in the mirror again. He looked worried, like a completely different person. I decided to break the silence. "Hey, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" The man responded immediately, "Nothing, really, but could you do me a favor from now on? Don't look out the window. Okay? Just really don't do it. Thanks." I was so shocked by his change in behavior that all I could do was reply, "Okay." We continued on our journey in silence. I sat there puzzled for quite a while, but I did as the man asked and didn't look out the window again. I couldn't imagine for what reason that would be necessary, though. As the moments continued to pass on, I began to get a little bit bored or maybe frustrated with the fact that I couldn't do what I wanted. "Hey, why shouldn't I look out the window, pal?" He didn't reply. He just kept looking straight ahead, dead silent. Naturally, I started to feel nervous again. We were still driving alongside that deep and dense forest, and the man was acting very strangely. I didn't like it. We came to a set of traffic lights, and I heard a voice beginning to yell from the side of the car. It seemed like it was coming from the side of the window that I was told not to look out of. I couldn't take not looking anymore, so I ignored the driver's request and looked outward. There was a middle-aged man shambling his way over to the taxi. He looked exhausted and very angry. He cupped his dirty hands up to the glass and peered in at me. It looked like he was studying my face very carefully. I was taken aback. I just wanted to get out of there, but the traffic light was solid red. I looked back at the stranger staring at me. He slammed his hand on the glass and began screaming, "It wasn't you." With that, he turned away to leave. Just as the traffic light changed color, we pulled away. I asked the taxi driver, what the hell was that guy's problem? He said, "That's why I always tell people not to look at that guy. Apparently, he's out there all the time and will stand there stopping traffic, pressing the crossing button over and over whenever he hears a car coming. The guy has gotten pretty good at it since he always stops the driver whenever he comes through the area." I was kind of shocked. I mean, why would the man do that? It didn't really tell me anything I wanted to know. Why did the driver know that was going to happen? He told me that he had heard from someone who lived near the guy that the reason he did that is because his wife had been killed in a hit-and-run accident. They were on a late-night stroll, and apparently, he got a good look at the guy who ran her over. Apparently, the man who killed her got out of the car for a moment, as if he was trying to decide whether or not to help them, but then he fled. That's when the man got a good look at him. He gave the police a description of the car and driver, but they never did anything about the man. So the man took up the task himself. Apparently, he waits there every night trying to catch the guy who killed his wife and take revenge. I guess you kind of get why he said, "It wasn't you." I guess the driver told me not to look his way because he didn't want me to get in trouble with the guy, in case he was having a mental episode or something, or if I was the guy he was looking for. The guy was scary, but overall, I just feel really bad for him. I hope one day they do catch that hit-and-run driver so the man can rest easy. I've heard the guy just stands there all alone for the entire night searching for the culprit, and that makes my heart feel heavy. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.